Welcome to the Soccer Curious Podcast, Beautiful Game Explained. Today we're going to kick off our coverage of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. My name is Brian Peter Falk. Joining me again is actor, writer, director, producer, and soccer rookie Gary Marks. Welcome back, Gary.
Glad to be here, my loving people.
Here we go. And we're pleased to have a soccer curious newbie on the pod today, Sirius XM DJ Mark Hamilton. Welcome, Mark.
Greetings from the Hamilton Rock Ranch.
Mark is taking over the chair once occupied by a good friend of the pod, Jake Johansson, whose stand-up schedule became a little bit too much. We wish him all the best, and go see him if he comes to your town, as he showed on this pod. He is hilarious. Today, we are mere hours away from the start of the 2026 World Cup. We'll remind you what it's all about, do a very necessary vibe check, because God knows the vibes have been weird, and preview the U.S. team's first match in the group stage against Paraguay. So let's get to it. Okay, so a little primer on what is the World Cup. The world's biggest sporting event. It's projected about 6 billion people will watch it, or there will be 6 billion views of it, something like that. 3 countries are hosting. It's the countries in North America: Mexico, U.S., Canada, 48 national teams. It's sort of a big deal. So I want to kind of get your sense of like what you're hearing about the World Cup. What do you think like the vibe is about the World Cup? Mark, since you're our new guest, why don't we start with you?
I'm hearing it's very expensive.
Yes, that is true. It is outrageously, extortionately expensive.
Extortionately well put, my friend. Other than that, I mean, I think the folks in my orbit, and it's not a heavy football orbit, international football. We're going to use the word soccer, or do we use the word?
I think we can use soccer. That's fine. We didn't invent it, but yeah.
Okay. So the folks in my orbit, those who are into soccer, are all in. Those who I've not heard mention soccer, whether it's through their kids or otherwise, not paying attention, but I feel like they're about to get caught up because it is, as you said, the biggest sporting event in the world. And my first introduction to the World Cup, outside of from a trivial standpoint, like pub trivia kind of a thing, would be when Brazil won. Was that 94?
Mm-hmm.
I happened to be living in a Brazilian neighborhood of Boston, and it was crazy. We lost a full drum kit that day because we had to parade. And so we just handed out a beautiful Slingerland kit to whoever needed something to smash. And only the snare drum made it home.
Wow. All right. Gary, what are you hearing? I think, the big headline is, I think Mark identified, is the crazy ticket prices, right? What are you hearing about the World Cup?
I heard that also. I heard that also. Someone told me it would cost me like 10,000 rupees and 6 of my goats. So that's too steep for me.
Fair.
I've read that Curacao qualified, which is extraordinary for being such a small country.
Mm-hmm.
And I think given that those are the two things I saw a commercial with John Malkovich in an orchestra that I thought was really compelling.
There was it was a World Cup.
It was a World Cup commercial.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really good. And I think that's like, I could answer like a couple, if this were a Jeopardy version of this podcast, I could do well in the potables category.
All right. So back on the vibes, right? I think the big one is the ticket prices. This is shaping up to be not just the most expensive World Cup ever, the most expensive sporting event in world history ever. Like more expensive than any Olympics. Like, again, the ticket prices are, they say the range is like $120, but that's not even really true, to about $4,000 on average is the normal ticket. But even compared to the last World Cup in 2022 in Qatar, it's like 400% higher. And FIFA's excuse for that, FIFA, again, for all the beginners, is the organization that runs world football, is basically saying, well, A, it's in the most expensive and most important media market in the world, the United States. Secondly, they're now doing like this dynamic pricing thing where they're basically saying, well, when in games where there is no demand, like Cape Verde playing or Curacao playing or a place like that, that we don't care about, then those ticket prices are low. But if it's a U.S. game, because it's hosted in the U.S. or in, those ticket prices are going to be much higher. Or if it's England playing France or Germany playing Portugal, like these are big market top 5 teams, those are going to have higher demand. A lot of it is just, look, it's not a nonprofit. They are trying to make tons of money, billions and billions of dollars. So
it seems like a fairly regressive sport then. I understood soccer to be a game of the people, and
it's a great point. And it's one thing I said, I think on an earlier episode is, in every sport you have your scandals, right? In baseball, maybe it's sign stealing or steroids or whatever. In soccer, the biggest scandal in soccer is not about the playing. It's about FIFA. It's about the organization. It's like a mob, right? So anyway, there's that. I just heard this peg the other day that they're now not going to allow people to bring in their own water into stadiums because they want to be able to charge $20 for a bottle of water. So, the tried and true thing of I at least get to bring in a clear plastic container, my little 12-ounce thing of water, one per person or whatever they have at Dodger Stadium or wherever you go. No agua.
Well,
for anybody.
That is regressive.
Well, water was more important in Qatar.
Yeah, you'd think. And the last one of those that I want to check in on the vibe check is what you guys have heard about visa problems, which is a uniquely American thing, it turns out, where, again, in Qatar, when World Cups are held in Brazil or France or Germany, which all of those have hosted World Cups, there's never a problem. If you're one of those countries that is a little bit like Iran is in the World Cup. Iran has been to many World Cups. They're in this one too, right? So that's never a problem. Why? Because sports is supposed to be sort of like this great equalizer that is separate from politics. What are you guys hearing about visas? Gary, what have you heard about visa problems?
Well, I would just say if FIFA's a mob, the people who hand out visas currently are the super mobs. So
yeah,
so that makes sense.
Yeah.
Didn't
Mark,
they just?
What do you think?
Didn't we just reject a Somali referee, one of the top referees? We've said he can't come.
Yep.
Now, I don't understand why he couldn't ref games in Canada or Mexico just because he can't come to the United States. It seems like that's a solvable problem.
It is, and apparently Canada, we were actually just talking about this with producer Naren before we started recording, Canada has, as of about 2 hours ago, now sent an invitation to this guy saying, why don't you come ref games in Canada? Yeah, he's not just an African referee. He was the number one rated referee in all of Africa. It just so happens he is from Somalia, and there are certain people in Washington who don't want Somalis in the United States. There's a whole back history of that.
That strikes me as a huge shame because the World Cup is ostensibly, I would imagine, something that could bring the world together.
That's the thought. Yeah.
Yeah. And it seems divisive.
Yeah, it is super divisive. And one thing I will say about Iran, for people, so in the World Cup, and we'll get into this, of the group stage, and then there's knockout rounds, like a normal tournament. For people who always think that it's not randomly selected, that the groups somehow there's either some weird fate or some behind the scenes machinations to actually build the groups, the U.S. has played Iran many times in the World Cup, which always seems like, really? Is this really random? For instance, in Qatar in 2022, the last World Cup, the U.S. got out of the group stage by beating Iran. They tied. Their group was Wales, England, and Iran. They ended up tying Wales, should have won the game, tying England, which was pretty amazing. They could have lost that game, but they tied. So they ended up with 2 ties, which you could not advance out of the group. You could get they call that getting grouped when you lose in your group. They could have gotten grouped. Instead, they beat Iran 1-0 to advance. But the one I want to bring up, which I think you guys will find interesting, I love your reaction to this, is that in 1998, the World Cup was in France, and the U.S. had just come off this amazing run in '94 where they had beaten Colombia, and it was the introduction to soccer for many Americans. '94. It is what begot Major League Soccer. Sort of came in the in the afterglow of the 94 thing. So now it's 4 years later, 98 France.
And we have Alexi Lalas.
And we have Alexi Lalas, him of the red hair. And of course, in the group, who do we get? Iran. Right. So relations are bad now with Iran. They were also bad in 1998. They still sucked, right? They've sucked for decades, ever since the Shah and the 70s and all that. So,
well, you know what Mark Twain said: history doesn't repeat itself, but it sure as fuck echoes.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Anyway, the U.S. and Iran go to play this game, and the players make this decision that instead of the U.S. taking their team photo and Iran taking their team photo, they get together and they take one photo together. U.S. player, Iran player, U.S. player, Iranian, U.S. Iranian, and they take one team photo for the thing.
Oh, wow. That's a good idea.
It feels like we are a world away from that now.
Yeah.
With Iranians not being able to get their visas, all sorts of like hijinks from the White House. It just seems like a crazy and really inopportune time to flex political muscle when you're trying to have a soccer tournament.
Yeah, it's a shame because we're not at war with the Iranian people. We're at war with their government. You know?
And right. And this is supposed to be bringing us together. Are any of Iran's matches in the United States, or are they all going to be in Canada and Mexico?
Well, they can't all be. I mean, they can be in the group stage. I think they were supposed to be in Mexico in the group stage. But eventually, if they get out of the group stage, things shift, right? So what happens in the group stage, and this has been a great thing for the U.S., is that you end up in a region for your group. The U.S. ended up in literally the best region because they play a game at SoFi, a game at Seattle, and a game at SoFi. So
you mean Los Angeles?
Correct. So SoFi, sorry, Los Angeles Stadium, because we can't call it SoFi. So SoFi, HVAC, air conditioned, don't have to worry about the heat. Seattle could be warm, but it's never going to be crazy. It's going to be super nice. Apparently, Seattle is doing a cool thing, which is they're doing like a robotic drone thing above the stadium showing the score during the game.
Oh, that's cool.
That will be cool. Who doesn't want to see that? So anyway, climate-wise, while England is down in Miami and it's like a gazillion degrees and 200% humidity and those people are English, the U.S. had a really great draw in the group stage. But anyway, Iran will eventually have to move to the United States to play games if they are to advance. So you can't like show up with no visa because you'll have to play games in the U.S. There's no way around it. So anyway. So let's move on from the vibes, which I think are, on the vibe scale, I'd say the vibes are probably mixed negative. Would we agree with that at this point?
Yeah. I'm still very excited to see it, but yeah, I would say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I think everyone is excited, but the whole geopolitical scenario is absolutely a big dark cloud.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think that's fair. All right, so we're going to move on and let's talk about the group stage, okay? Because that is what we are now going to be dealing with. As of this recording, tomorrow, the World Cup starts. The group stage starts in Mexico City at Estadio Azteca with Mexico playing South Africa. So that's a sort of a cool start to the game. Then on Friday, the U.S. plays their game again in Los Angeles at SoFi Stadium, their opening game in their group, which is Group D, against Paraguay. So just to remind everybody, there's 48 teams this year at the World Cup. That is the most ever. In previous iterations of the World Cup, it's been 32. They have now added they've added 16 more teams. And the effect of that is that creates an additional knockout round, right? So now there will be a knockout round of 32, a knockout round of 16, a quarterfinal, a semifinal, and a final. But we start with this group stage. Exactly. It's all about money. It's all about the money. Here's how the group phase works, right? So you get 3 points for a win, 1 point for a tie, no points for a loss. And you're trying to get enough wins and ties to be one of the top two finishers in your group. The top two finishers automatically move on to the next round. And then, because there's a weird number this year, so that's 24, but they need a round of 32. So there will be 8 third place finishers. So from the 12 groups, the 8 third place finishers, so they're the top 8 third place finishers will also advance.
And is that determined by the most points?
Correct. So that's determined by the most points. And then there are tiebreakers like goals for, goal differential, things like that. But it starts with points. And that's for in the basic, it's the easiest to remember is 3 for a win, 1 for a tie, no for a loss, 0 for a loss. And you try to move through. So that group stage is beginning. That group stage is going to go for like basically what amounts to kind of like 2.5 weeks of group stage, right? With all these games being played, every team in the group plays 3 games because it's four teams in the group. Okay, so
104 games in total.
In total, 104. It's a big tournament. 39 days. I mean, that's a lot
of games.
That's a long time.
I have a question.
Yeah,
the home team. Throughout the World Cup, the host country has always been granted an automatic bid.
Correct.
Did U.S., Mexico, and Canada all 3 get an automatic bid? And
they did.
Is that perhaps why they expanded, other than money? Why they expanded the field?
That's a good question. I mean, I've never heard that as a rationale, though that would sort of make sense in a way. But I will tell you that this is the future of the World Cup. There's going to be, because the building of stadiums is so effing expensive these days that there's been a real move away from having a single country that would need to build like 4 multi-billion-dollar stadiums to accommodate the World Cup doing it. So there will be more co-hosts moving forward in the World Cup. So this is sort of like the first salvo of these, but there will be many more because, of course, not a single thing has been built for this World Cup.
Right. I think it's going to be interesting to see how folks from Europe, for instance, who are used to a very extensive rail system, and they come here and they've got a ticket for a game in Kansas City and a game in Boston, and then they realize that you can't do that.
Well, that's the other issue, and this has been a back on the vibes, is that I know in Foxborough, I know in Jersey, because MetLife Stadium is hosting a lot of games, including the final. The final of the World Cup is at MetLife in East Rutherford, New Jersey.
New York Stadium.
New York. But what FIFA has done is they've taken away all the parking spots to make them like festival spaces and all that stuff. And they've just strongly discouraged people from driving there. And so they're telling people you got to take mass transit, but moving that number of people by mass transit is not really feasible. And FIFA wants the states that own those mass transit apparatuses to subsidize all of it. And the states are pushing back, and it's this huge shit fit where like the people of, the governor of New Jersey is weighing in and going, sorry, like we are going to have to raise prices because we're going to need more trains. So to get out there is going to cost like $200 to take a 13-mile trip or whatever from, Penn Station in New York out to East Rutherford is going to be expensive just to make that little time. I mean, it's not a far trip, but just to take the trip. So all of that is contributing to those sort of weird vibes. Anyway, let's take on the group stage. So that's where we're heading into, is the group stage. So now let's talk about the U.S. in their group stage, because this is the one we're going to try to pay the most attention to on Soccer Curious for the next several weeks. Although I also want to, after a couple episodes, I want us to think about each adopting a non-U.S. team to follow through the World Cup. And I would strongly suggest we all try to adopt one of the top teams that are likely to go really far in the tournament, which I think will be fun. We won't do it now, but just think about it.
I was leaning towards Curacao, so I guess I'm going to have to.
You're definitely going to want Curacao, except they're not going to make it out of their group. So we should take 2 teams. We have our team, and then we have our dark horse team. Okay. The sentimental favorite.
That's a good idea.
Okay, so Gary gets Curacao, and then a team that will actually maybe go for the final. Someone can take Cape Verde.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be fun. Uzbekistan. I'm looking at all the. I'm talking about all the teams that are not going to get out of their group. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about the group for the U.S. So on Friday, June 12th, they have Paraguay. again at SoFi in LA. Then they move up a week later on the 19th to Seattle to play Australia, known as the Socceroos. And that's not a joke. And then they come back to SoFi Thursday, June 25th to play Turkey. And as we've discussed on this pod before, this is how you learn how to pronounce names of countries when you do things like the Olympics and the World Cup. It's no longer Turkey. It's now Turkey. Like turkey, yay. Okay. So those are the three of the group stage. What, if anything, have you been hearing about these matchups? I don't know if you guys have been listening to any other pods or like reading stuff in the paper. What do you think about those?
I only listen to this podcast for
this
my
is the only
soccer
podcast.
information.
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, why would I?
Yeah, fair. So you've heard nothing.
Well, I haven't listened. I'll admit I haven't listened to any other World Cup podcast. And if I were to do so, I would try and find one that's not hosted by Americans, because
Fair.
I have no idea how good the Socceroos actually are. I mean, I know about kangaroos, and their ability to kick is rather impressive.
That's
So,
true. Good point.
I would
Mark.
think that they would do well. Paraguay, it seems to me, would be natural at this, soccer being, inescapable in South America.
South America, yeah. Fair.
And,
that's a good. That's
and then
you're doing
Turkey,
good detective work.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Well, I'm not a cartographer, but I've got pictures. And and then Turkey, Americans, we pay attention every November, but other than that, I don't think everybody's well versed in how good they might be at this sport. So we've got a built-in bias.
Yeah,
and
that's fair.
But also the U.S. we've never really been all that strong, except for, as you say, the year we beat 94, was it? We beat Colombia. Have we ever got beyond the round? What was the round of 16?
Correct. So one time.
Once.
In 2002, we got past the round of 16, and we did that by actually beating Mexico, believe it or not. But that is the only time we've done it, which is it's so strange given the amount of money put into soccer in the United States and the caliber of the players we are now producing. Are we at the highest level? No, we are not. But we are also, the way I think about it, I was thinking about this today, like how do you describe this? The U.S. men's national team is like a really brand new, off the line, nicely kitted out, top trim package Jeep Cherokee. That's the U.S. men's national team. The problem is that England, France, Portugal, Spain, Argentina, those guys are Ferraris.
Yes.
And that's okay. We can't beat them in a race on a track, but if we can make a game that is much more about off-roading with boulders and tree logs and stuff, we can do okay. But that's
good
where
analogy.
We're the really nice Jeep Cherokee.
Yeah, I like that. Now I can follow it.
Yeah, that's what we are.
So we're not surprised. In fact, we expect, even folks who know the game, we expect the U.S. to advance out of the group stage.
100%. And in fact,
along with Australia or Paraguay.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So the U.S. is probably the top team in that group. Okay, so there is every expectation that the U.S. could win the group, and in many tournaments where the top team then plays the second place team in the next bracket or whatever. It is really advantageous for the U.S. to win the group. It would be a lot better than coming in second. Second also gets you out of the group, but just in terms of later matchups, it would be a lot better if the U.S. wins. So here's the deal. Paraguay and Australia are both, and those are teams we have played in the last year in friendlies, by the way. Paraguay and Australia are teams that are not going to get a lot of the ball when they're playing against the U.S. The U.S. will control possession in those games, but that's
These
by
are
design.
defensive-minded teams.
They are, and sometimes that is called like parking the bus. You'll hear commentators say that, where the team basically accepts they're not going to have the ball. They retreat to get just the bigger box around the goal area is called the penalty area. They will retreat to that penalty area line, and they will do what's called a low block. They will just be really stiff on defense, really tough to break down, and they will force teams to try to kind of figure out a way to play through them to score. That is what both Paraguay will do in a couple of days and Australia will do in a week, particularly Australia, which I think is the weakest team in the group.
Okay. So are they thinking they'll win, say, a 1-0 match?
Correct.
That's their
They're
goal.
hoping. So when you park the bus, when you play in a low block, that's only about defense. The offense part of that is what is often called the counterattack. So what they're hoping is they will then at some point get a ball and they will turn around and go quickly to the other goal and try to score while they have the attacking team sort of pulled a little bit out of shape and stretched out all over the field. One thing I will say about the American team is that they have always struggled to break down low blocks, right? Because they play a lot of those around this area because they play a lot of teams in the Caribbean that are not very skilled teams. But they sometimes struggle to do that. And defensively, the U.S. maybe isn't the best team. They are not always the sharpest defensively. So there are sometimes a hole or two that somebody can squeak through and try to get a shot on goal. So that's what I would say about all those.
Is there historically a team that has parked the bus and done very well as using that as a strategy?
You can do that. And I think let me think. I mean, Morocco recently made it pretty far into the tournament, into the semifinals.
Oh yeah,
playing against teams that they were outmatched by, so they understood we're going to play defense and play the counterattack. It can be done. There have only been 8 teams that have won the World Cup. Those teams have not parked the bus. Those teams are the best teams in football who play a really beautiful possession attacking style. The reason football is called the beautiful game is because of things like that. There's that. But just in terms of the U.S. group, Paraguay, Australia, Turkey, the U.S. coach is a guy named Mauricio Pochettino, who's an Argentinian coach. Okay, it is the first time in the history of the U.S. program that we have had a coach that is not an American coaching the team.
That bodes well.
It's sort of a cool X factor for the team, which is like, what is this guy going to do? What are the tactics he's going to use? Which players is he going to play? Now, unlike you guys, I listen to a ton of other soccer podcasts. I read all the media about soccer. I feel like every pundit who has tried to predict what Mauricio Pochettino is going to do has been wrong. They always get it wrong. The guy zags when everybody thinks he's going to zig. He plays guys, you're like, why is he playing that guy? He plays formations, and you're like, why did he come up with this formation? It's crazy what he's done. But, on the other hand, he has the team playing pretty well. So it's sort of an interesting... Yeah, so he's had some bouts of not being very successful. But I will tell you, in the run-up to the World Cup, most teams play what they call friendlies, which are like tune-up games. They don't count for anything. They're just to get some, game speed practice. So the U.S. played Senegal, which is a very good team, one of the top teams in Africa, and they played Germany, which I hope speaks for itself. They beat Senegal 3-2, and were convincingly, it could have been more. The goal score could have been higher. They lost to Germany 2-1, but in all honesty, in the first half of the game, which is the only one you really count in a friendly, because in the second half they start making a gazillion subs to get guys onto the pitch. So it's really the first half that counts. The U.S. was really the better team.
Oh wow,
interesting.
Yeah. So and
I was going to ask that. Do teams usually put their best players out there in a friendly ahead of the World Cup?
Ahead of the World Cup, yes, but only for a half or 60 minutes maybe. Sometimes they, 70 minutes tops, then everybody comes out and gets switched because you want people rested. You don't want injury and all that stuff. Okay, so we're doing really well on time, but I do want to move on to specifically talk about Friday's game, U.S.-Paraguay, because this is the game. Here's the homework we all have, is we're all going to watch this game, and then next week when we get back on the pod, we are going to talk about the Paraguay game. All right. So we have to take a break. So we're going to talk about U.S.-Paraguay right after this. Welcome back to the Soccer Curious podcast, the beautiful game explained. We are now previewing Friday's matchup, U.S. men's national team against Paraguay, the first game in Group D, the group stage of the 2026 World Cup. Okay, so we've already talked a little bit about the style that the U.S. Should expect to get from Paraguay, which is sort of like this defensive-minded team, hard to break down. They're just going to make a wall of defense, try to wait to get a loose ball, and try to go quickly with their speediest players, and they're going to try to counter. Okay, and we were talking about Mauricio Pochettino and his impact on the team. Now, one of the things I think that he has done better, perhaps than other coaches, is he does have them ready to sort of play and understand how to break down low block teams. So it's going to be sort of interesting to see what he's able to get out of his team. So a couple things about Paraguay. So they have some players that are very good, and most teams in the World Cup are going to have some number of players that come from like the highest levels. The U.S. has these two. Okay. Obviously, teams like France or England or whatever, those are like all-star teams. Like every player on that team is a legit star on their own team. The U.S. does not have that. We have 5 or 6 sort of Champions League level players, really good players who play at the highest levels in the biggest countries and all that stuff.
Who is our biggest star? And what position?
That's a great question. Gary, do you remember? We talked about this at one point. Do you remember who we said our biggest star is? I just saw him on a box of Cheez-Its.
Oh, we're not doing Wheaties anymore.
I stopped eating Cheez-Its. Damn it.
Yeah.
My grandfather loved those.
You picked the wrong time to stop eating Cheez-Its.
I want to say Fernando Lamas, but I know that's not right.
I love llamas. They spit.
It is not Fernando Lamas. Okay. It is Hershey, Pennsylvania's own Christian Pulisic.
Oh, I've
my
heard of
God,
him.
I remember that.
Yes.
I know
Christian
that guy.
Pulisic, I remembered that.
My mom went to
Christian
Hershey,
Pulisic.
Pennsylvania for her honeymoon.
I've been there, not for my honeymoon. I've been there. It's a really fun park, especially if you like chocolate. So Christian Pulisic is now in his late 20s. He was sort of like a wonderkind on the scene a couple World Cup cycles ago. He plays for AC Milan, which is a big soccer club in Italy, where he really is the star of that team. He has, unfortunately, not had a very good run of form since January. He hasn't scored. He's been sort of like out of sorts. I will say in the Senegal game, and in Germany too. Germany, he was very good. But in Senegal, he was incredible. He had an assist. He scored a goal. He was all over the place. He was unstoppable. They had no
He
answer
owns
for
the
Christian Pulisic.
Senegalese.
Yeah, so Christian Pulisic is sort of like our big dude. He wears the number 10 shirt, which in soccer...
Maradona.
Exactly. Jersey numbers sort of matter, and the big jersey number, Lionel Messi, also wears number 10, is the number 10. I just saw Christian Pulisic on a commercial. I think it's for Michelob Ultra, I want to say. It's Christian Pulisic, Lionel Messi, and what's his name? The goalkeeper for Mexico.
Steve.
No,
Fernando Lamas?
it is not Fernando Lamas. Guillermo Ochoa is the Mexican goalkeeper with all the hair. Anyway,
Oh, he's 40.
yeah, I know. Well, he's a goalkeeper. They last quite a bit longer.
Yeah, no running.
Yeah, not a lot of running. Exactly right. So anyway, that's who our biggest star is. So what you can expect from the U.S. Going in against Paraguay, right, is that Paraguay is going to be this defensive team. That means the U.S. is going to have more of the ball. So that means our best players are going to have to really be, on point with dribbling and passing and doing all the things to get around the Paraguayan players and try to score. So that's a thing that we're looking out for on Friday. So I do want to mention a couple of U.S. players for us to pay attention to. The number one is who you just asked about, Christian Pulisic. Another one, a big friend of the pod that Gary knows, is Folarin Balogun. So
I remember
Folarin Balogun.
Balogun.
has a really interesting backstory in that he is a tri-national. He's Nigerian, English, and American. He was born in the United States while his parents were on like a 1-year-long sabbatical to Brooklyn, and that is what made him an American citizen, and we're very lucky to have him. He plays in France.
And our president's not.
He's trying to take away birthright citizenship. There would be no Fuller and Balgarin.
There would be no Flo Balogun if he did that. That is
Balogun.
Flo Bal.
Exactly.
Flo
Bal.
Balogun.
No Flo Bal.
So Flo
Jesus.
Balogun is a striker. So he plays at the top of the pitch and tries to score goals. It's a little bit of a question mark whether or not he will start or whether or not another guy who's a Texan named Ricardo Pepi, who plays in the Netherlands, will start. But one of those two will, but I'm expecting it will be Balogun. So breaking down a low block is really important for the striker to run in behind and try to get the ball and score.
I just want to point out we're talking about Floba, who's number 20.
Yep.
And then Ricardo wears number 9.
He does. Ricardo
I'm doing
wears
my
the number
homework
9
here on
jersey.
the side.
Right. So this is interesting because the number 9 jersey is one that is often reserved for a striker. Okay.
Ted
But
Williams.
The number system has gotten off kilter since the 1860s when association football was started, but it used to be they counted from the back, which is why the goalkeeper is number 1 and the 10 is up toward the attacking and the defensive players are like 4 and 5 and 6. That's the reason it was like that.
So
It's that way in
23
most
is not
sports, though.
It is. Yeah.
well.
Like
23.
in American football, your number dictates what position you can play.
Well, it used to.
Oh no, it still does.
It still does. But now you see receivers wearing like number 12.
Because
It used to be receivers were the 80s, right?
Right.
Offensive linemen were the 70s and the 60s. Linebackers
Well,
were the 50s.
Yeah. Well, yes. We
Right.
don't have to argue about that.
Anyway.
And then in baseball, it does. It used to. That's how it started.
Baseball, it did, yeah.
Right. Which makes a lot of sense. Okay, so
Number 5.
So we're gonna be watching Pulisic. We're gonna be watching Balogun, and I have 2 more to pay attention to. One is a guy named Weston McKennie, who I believe is also from Texas. I could be wrong about that. Weston McKennie plays for Juventus, which is a team also in Italy. Very good player, a midfielder. He will be important for doing 2 things. Midfielders often play offensive roles and defensive roles, so he will be, on the attack, but also trying to defend if there's a breakaway on that counterattack from Paraguay. And the last one is a guy named Serginho Dest. Serginho Dest also plays in the Netherlands, plays for the same team that Ricardo Pepi plays for. And
How do you spell that?
Dest.
Dest. I love that.
Serginho Dest is what's called a wing back. So he's a defender, but he will also bomb down the field. He's got great flow. He's great with the ball. He can take guys on one-on-one and get past them. And he will be trying to hook balls into the box for guys like Flo Balogun to put in the net. Okay? So those are the 4 we're going to pay attention to. Pulisic, Balogun, Weston McKennie, Serginho Dest. So on the other side, on Paraguay, this is really sort of interesting. So Paraguay also played some friendly matches prior to the World Cup. So they just played a game against Nicaragua. It was a complete cakewalk. Nicaragua is not a strong team. They beat them like 4-1. But in the game, Paraguay's best attacker, Julio Enciso, who plays in France, pulled a hammy.
That's
so
my
he
nickname.
is out. He is pulled a hammy. He is out for the game on Friday, which is, I mean, you don't want to see anybody ever get injured, but it is a very timely, good thing for the U.S. that their number 1 attacker will not be playing the game.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Now-
that's something to keep in mind.
And we were expecting this to be a low-scoring game.
Here's what I would say. In the World Cup, you don't get a ton of high-scoring games. They do happen, especially when one team is great and one team is not very good. You can get some outsized scores. But I am not anticipating that U.S. versus Paraguay is going to be a high-scoring game. I am not. I think it would be incredible if the U.S. wins that game 3-1 would be like, wow.
A lot.
That would be the U.S. really grabbing the game by the throat. I am not anticipating that's the case. I'm hoping for more like a 1-0 or a 2-1 or a 2-0 would be something like that.
What,
Would be great.
what time is the game on Friday?
It is at 6 p.m. On Friday. So
6
on the
p.m.
West Coast.
Pacific Standard Time?
on Pacific time. I only do Pacific
Okay.
time. Yeah, 6 p.m.
Okay.
Pacific time. All right, so that's our homework. We're going to watch the Paraguay game. We are going to, afterwards, next week, we're going to talk about what happened in the game. So really pay attention to that low block by Paraguay, the possession style the U.S. is going to have to play to try to break guys down. Are they going to dribble through the middle? Are they going to cross balls into the box? What matchups are favored there? How is that all going to work? It's going to be super duper interesting. I would expect, and I am hoping for, a U.S. win. I think that's totally doable. And frankly, I think it's pretty necessary. I think Turkey is the best team in the group that's not called the United States. Turkey is the last game the U.S. plays. So the U.S. really wants to beat Paraguay and Australia to set themselves up to get out of the group in first place by maybe tying Turkey. You know what I mean? Like Turkey
So
will be
we're
a
hoping
tougher.
we're hoping that the game against Turkey is just gravy.
That is
Come on now.
That is that is all the time we have for today. Please remember, on our next episode, we are going to dissect the U.S. game against Paraguay and look forward to their next match against Australia. A reminder that Paraguay game is Friday, June 12th at 6 p.m. Pacific on Fox. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and tell your friends. If you have a comment or question, you can also email us at soccercuriouspodcast@gmail.com. Our special thanks to Gary Marks, Mark Hamilton, and all of you for joining us. See you next time.
Go
Bye.
USA.